Starting off this countdown, we have the Intergalactic War. As I mentioned in part 1 of this video, there are a number of people on TikTok who claim to be time travelers from the future, and they are using TikTok to warn people what's to come. And according to TikToker Aesthetic Time Warper, on August 11th of this year, aliens will come down in their crafts and land on Earth. He continued on saying that eventually an intergalactic war will take place. Ain't that great? I hope the military starts working on space weapons because I feel like aliens would easily win this battle. Who knows what weapons of mass destruction they have. Moving on to number 9, we have the Civil War. One of the most famous time travelers out there would have to be John Titor. For those of you who don't know, John Titor is a supposed time traveler from the year 2036 and he's on a military mission. He first made his appearance on the internet in the 2000s on online forums. He would post about predictions or share stories from the future. But in 2001, Titor disappeared from online and was never heard from again. Now, one of the reasons John went back in time was to warn the world of impending doom. He said that in 2004, the US would face civil unrest surrounding the presidential election. He said that every month this conflict would get worse and worse, and then there would be a full-blown civil war by 2008. He predicted that as a result of the war, the US would split into 5 regions. Each region would have their own military objective, hence why they decided to split. According to him, the war would end in 2015 and would be followed by World War III. Now obviously this didn't happen, thankfully, but Titor argued that not only was he warning us about the upcoming wars, but he was trying to prevent it from happening. So maybe he did. In our 8th spot, we have the hurricane. According to another TikTok time traveler, on June 28th of 2022, a very disastrous and dangerous hurricane will hit between Georgia and South Carolina. He said that this one will be one of the 5 most deadliest hurricanes we have faced yet. Now, one of the worst hurricanes in the world would be the 1900 Galveston Hurricane, also known as the Great Galveston Hurricane or the Great Storm of 1900. This was the deadliest natural disaster in United States history, and around 8,000 people died as a result. So let's hope that this does not happen. I did not have hurricanes on my summer 2022 bucket list. In our 7th spot today, we have the earthquake. Honestly, all of these predictions seem to be geared towards the US, and I'm in Canada, so I'm out here chilling. But all of my American fans, maybe consider moving. So about a month after the massive hurricane will hit, a strong earthquake will strike. How fun! This time traveler claims that on July 23rd of 2022, the strongest earthquake in history will hit LA and will create a giant wave. Again, let's hope that this does not come true, but I'm happy I'm living in Canada. Moving on to number 6, we have 4 Vesta. 4 Vesta is the name of a meteor said to be headed straight to Earth. This anonymous time traveler has come to this year to warn people what is going to happen this year. And they claim that in September, a meteor called 4 Vesta will pass by Earth and almost hit the coast of China. Now, good news. He said almost, meaning we'll be safe. But a number of other time travelers say that 2022 will be filled with close calls and near misses. Hopefully, we never have to worry about one actually crashing down. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the superhumans. That one time traveler, that's literally his name, on TikTok went viral after having a strange prediction for December of 2021. First off, he claims to be a time traveler from the year 2485. According to him, he said that on December 20th of 2021, 8 humans will receive superpowers from energy waves of the sun. But then, by Christmas Day, something big will happen that will shock the world and change the way humans live forever. Now, those dates have come and gone, and I don't know about you, but I wasn't one of the lucky 8 to get superpowers. Also, nothing happened on Christmas that changed our lives forever. Just that air fryer I got, that things made life so much easier. In our 4th spot today, we have the bunker. Now, there are top secret bunkers all over the world. You got doomsday bunkers, military bunkers, you name it. But apparently in 2024, a 35,000-year-old bunker will be discovered. The time traveler didn't mention exactly when or how, but he did say that it will be found in Argentina. What is in this bunker, you ask? Well, according to them, the bunker has many secrets inside of it, such as ancient times, technologies, hidden codes, and more. I mean, it won't be of much use to us, but I'm sure it will be of peak interest to scientists and archaeologists. Moving on to number 3, we have the green sky. The TikTok user That One Time Traveler has made a number of interesting predictions, this next one being one of them. They said that we all must remember August 20th of 2022. So mark it in your calendars right now, folks, because on this day, the sky across all of Earth will become a bright green color, and that is due to the fact that a planet not too far from Earth will explode. The planet is apparently full of green rocks, and so its explosion will turn our sky green. He continued on saying that the green sky will last for about 5 hours before slowly fading back to blue. Now, a green sky seems pretty cool, as long as it's like a light green. You know, sage is a very nice color. Forest green, on the other hand, maybe not. Hey, but at least he didn't say that the green space rocks will come flying towards Earth, so that's positive. Coming in at number 2, we have the year 2714. According to this next time traveler, who has not yet revealed their name or identity, they are from the year 2714. Now, chances are we won't be around for that year. I mean, unless scientists come up with some life-preserving device, but still, who would want to be around for thousands of years? I'm sorry, not me. Anyways, if you want to know what life will be like in 2714, then here you go. According to this time traveler, in the year 2714, an alternate universe will be found, and same with a human fish species. So I'm thinking mermaids, okay? We'll find out that mermaids are real by 2714. That's kind of sad though, like I want to be around to meet them. Honestly, as a kid, I wanted to be a mermaid so badly. Am I the only one? Let me know in the comments below. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Y2K disaster. Now, John Teeter had a lot of predictions for the early 2000s. Not only would there be war, but he posted some weird warning message that had people worried that the end was near. The message he posted went as so, and I quote, "If you want to survive the coming conflict, learn to let fear keep you alive. Too many of you turn off the life-saving natural instincts and premonitions when it's convenient. The same person who has 5 deadbolt locks on their door will think nothing about getting into a parking garage elevator with a total stranger. If you want to live, keep your eyes open." I mean, it's good advice, but also, why was he warning people? He was telling people to be cautious and saying only some people will survive. Now, a couple of disasters did occur in the early 2000s, but we don't know if they were what John was warning us about or just a coincidence.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have the time travel murder. This creepy story comes from 1997, where forensic scientist Mike Silverman was working on the case of a woman's murder in London. He found biological material underneath her fingernails and presumed this was from scratching her attacker just before she died. He ran the DNA sample through the national database and bam! There was a match with someone. The only problem was the match was with a woman who had already been murdered 3 weeks before. There was no connection between the 2 women and nothing to suggest they had ever met. Mike found that there was no mix-up with the samples, and his best theory was that the scissors used to take the samples at the mortuary had been contaminated despite being cleaned. Other people claim this wouldn't have been possible, and that what we're really dealing with here is a mysterious feud between one or many time travelers who weren't very good at cleaning up after themselves. Coming in at number 9 now, we have Jofar Vorin. In 1851, a man named Jofar was found wandering in a German village. He spoke broken German a little bit, but said his main languages were Laxarian and Abramian. He said he was from Laxaria on the continent of Sakria, separated from Europe by a vast ocean. The other continents were Aflar, Aslar, Auslar, and Uplar. He claimed to be a Christian, although he called it Ispatian. The authorities grilled him, but he never tripped up and his languages held up as apparently real. The story goes cold after he was sent to Berlin for further study, and some people claim that the German government has been hiding further information on Jofar because it all points towards him being a time traveler from a distant future. Alright, at the number 8 spot now, we have Al Bielek. In 1988, this American man watched the Philadelphia experiment, a movie about a supposed time traveling experiment conducted by the the US on one of their ships. When he saw the movie, he claimed he remembered a repressed memory, that he was part of that real experiment that the movie was based on. He said he was part of a time traveling project and was sent to 100,000 BC and as far forward as the year 6037. He also recounted how he lived for 2 years in the future from 2749 to 2751. Right up to his death in 2011, Al was doing interviews where he discussed in great detail the future that he lived in, how society had changed, and why he was allowed by the government to share his story with everyone. Whatever you guys think of this one, it's definitely worth checking out. Alright, coming in at number 7 now, we have the Swiss watch. Switzerland is famous for making luxury watches. You'll often see them strapped onto the wrists of many rich people. However, you wouldn't expect to see one in a 400-year-old Chinese tomb, except that is supposedly what happened in 2008. Archaeologists were excavating a tomb dating to the Ming dynasty when they found what they thought was just a normal grime-encrusted ring, but after wiping off the dirt, they were shocked to see what appeared to be a tiny Swiss watch that fits on a ring. How did this object appear in a sealed tomb hundreds of years before its earliest invention? It was labelled an UPART, which stands for out of place artifact. Some say this is the work of a careless time traveller, other people say it's just Photoshop. In the years since its discovery, it still draws heated discussion. Alright, coming in at number 6 now, we have Andrew Basiago. This American lawyer claims that when he was growing up in the 1960s and 70s, he was part of Project Pegasus, a time travel experiment by the US government. The machines they used for time travel were built from plans found in the office of scientific genius Nikola Tesla after he died. Now he claims that he was sent back many times from a million years BC to Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, and that he's even visited the year 2045. He says that the US government has been trying to cover up the truth of its time travel technology, and that he is actually going to run for president in 2020 and then show everyone the truth if he wins. Some people say he's crazy, others say that's just what they want you to think. Who is they? I don't know who they is, I'm afraid. Okay, at number 5 now, we have the 40s car. In 1988, Strange magazine posted the story of an interview with 2 businessmen. They said that in 1969 they were driving along a deserted highway in America when ahead of them they saw an old turtleback style 1940s car. It was in mint condition and even had 1940 on its license plate. They pulled alongside it to get a better view. There was a woman in the driver's seat dressed in a 1940s style fur coat and feathered hat. A small child stood in the passenger seat next to her. The woman had a look of absolute terror on her face. She kept looking everywhere in horror. The men signaled for her to pull over because she seemed like she was in distress. She finally nodded, so they overtook her and pulled over by the side of the road. They saw she was doing the same, but when they came to a stop and looked behind them, the car had vanished. They were shocked. Another eyewitness in another car had seen the exact same thing happen. Some people speculate this was an unwilling time traveller spiraling in and out of different times. Pretty scary thought. Alright, next up at number 4 now, we have the chronovisor. In the 1950s, a priest known as Father Ernetti claimed to have built a device known as the chronovisor, which could see forwards and backwards in time. The machine was said to be built by a team of scientists and was essentially a cabinet made of metal with tubes and dials and levers for controlling what time you wanted to look into. When you looked inside, the machine would supposedly pick up on residual electromagnetic radiation left over from past events, and that would allow you to see them. Father Ernetti claimed that he saw a number of different events, including the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. He even took this picture of that event. A lot of people claim this was a complete hoax, and towards the end of his life, Ernetti confessed that the pictures weren't real, but up to his last breath he insisted the chronovisor was totally 100% real. Some people believe it still lies in the Vatican's hidden chambers to this day. Next up at number 3 now, we have the smartphone. This is a painting depicting Mr. William Pynchon, a fur trader born in 1590 trading with Native Americans. Everything looks pretty ordinary until you focus on this guy in the front who appears to be holding a smartphone. Many people said that the object's appearance, the way he is holding it, and the way he is looking at it means it can only be a smartphone. The painting itself isn't from that time. It was painted in 1937. However, that's still almost 7 decades before the dawn of smartphones. The painter died in 1982, leaving behind a fierce debate. Some people say it's proof of time travel, while others say it's just an iron blade, a religious text, or a mirror. What do you guys make of it? Coming at number 2 now, we have the COS Artifact. In 1961, geologists found a strange looking lump of hard rock near the town of Olancha in California. They dated its formation to around 500,000 years ago. Inside of it was a spark plug, the ignition device used for a lot of modern day engines. Pictures were taken of the COS Artifact and it was analysed in great detail, but still there was great confusion about where it could have possibly came from. A number of investigators came to the conclusion that the COS Artifact must have been left by time travelers 500,000 years ago, either by accident or as a clue for us. Critics say that the dating methods used were flawed or totally non-existent. If you're hoping to one day take a look at this thing for yourself, the COS Artifact disappeared some years later, but the debate still remains. Alright, finally now at the number 1 spot we have the man from Taured. In July 1954, a Caucasian man landed in Tokyo International Airport where officers asked him where he was from. He said, Taured. They said that didn't exist and asked to see his passport, which claimed he was a citizen of Taured. He said it was located somewhere between France and Spain and that he was from a town that was over 1,000 years old. They asked him to point to it on a map and he pointed to Andorra and seemed very confused why they were calling it Andorra and not Taured. They decided to investigate it further and left him in a guarded hotel room for that night. You know how this one goes. The next morning, he was gone without a trace. There were no signs of his escape. The theories for this story range from parallel universe slips to time travelers from the future.
In at number 10, we have the trendy time traveler. When we first take a look at this black and white picture, nothing seems strange, right? This picture was claimed to be taken in the early 1940s in British Columbia, Canada, so that's like the West Coast. But upon closer inspection, a person in the crowd appears to be out of place because of his modern and urban clothing. People believe that this might have been a time traveler because no one in that era could have ever dressed like that. Alright, moving into number 9, we have this woman who is on a mobile phone in the 1920s. Is this real life right now? Are you kidding me? There was a viral video posted on YouTube back in October 2010 that claimed to prove that time travel was real. It was titled Chaplin's Time Traveler. The clip was a newly released Charlie Chaplin film, and the film was titled Circus Bonus, and it included unreleased footage including these recordings of a woman walking by holding what appears to be a modern mobile phone back in 1928. Many people believe that this was a time traveler caught on camera, while others suspected that it was probably a portable, hearing aid. What do you guys think? But did they even have that back then as well? Nicolas Cage makes it onto this list at number 8. Back in 2001, pictures said to be taken in the 1800s of Nicolas Cage doppelganger was put up for auction on eBay. They have so many similarities to each other that it actually looks like it could be Nicolas Cage. There was even another picture found in a Mexican history book that had a section of the 19th century Mexican emperor Maximilian I. Take a look at this picture. It looks a lot like Nicolas Cage. You know what? It probably is. He time traveled. Nicolas Cage either is a time traveler or a vampire that he can never die. No wonder he's in so many movies. He's been doing it for a long time. And now at number 7 we have John Travolta, another celebrity. So around the same time that, the Nicolas Cage portrait was up for sale, this portrait of this bizarre image of this man that looks exactly like John Travolta. Or is it John Travolta himself? Well, it was put up for sale by a separate seller. The seller was inspired to put up this Travolta portrait for sale after he saw the Nicolas Cage one. He wanted to get $50,000. And that was for this picture that was painted in 1860. The comparison of the two pictures is absolutely crazy. They look almost identical to each other. John Travolta is a Scientologist and they believe in reincarnation, but time travel can't be ruled out. Now in at number 6 spot, we're talking about Jay-Z, yet another celebrity on this list. So take a look at this picture right here. This is a black and white photo you guys are looking at. This was taken in 1930s in Brooklyn, New York. Now let's take a look at a current picture of Jay-Z. The two look identical, don't they? They must be related somehow, or Jay-Z is a time traveler. There is no other logical explanation for this. Jay-Z is actually originally from Brooklyn, New York City, which makes this coincidence even weirder. We're climbing up this list now, and at number 5 we're talking about Eddie Murphy. This comic legend has been time traveling since the 1920s. Okay, not really. Take a look at this picture right here. This is from the 20s. I mean, the similarities to Eddie Murphy is just so creepy and mysterious. They definitely look like they could be the same person. They even have the same grin and bone structure. I don't know if I'm analyzing this way too much. How would you guys explain this one? Bruce Willis makes this list in at number 4. According to the proposed theory, Bruce Willis can attribute his action hero skills to his major roles in the Pacific Theater during the Second World War. The photo that resembles Bruce Willis is a man named General Doug MacArthur. Honestly, to me, this looks like the same person. I don't know who General Doug MacArthur is, but I don't think he exists. This right here is definitely Bruce Willis, and he time traveled. Now at number 3, we have Justin Timberlake. Okay, let's look at the evidence. The picture on the right is this anonymous criminal from the past, but it looks almost identical to Justin Timberlake. I mean, there is no denying that these two men share a lot of similar facial features. They could possibly be the same person if Justin Timberlake was capable of time traveling, that is. They both even have the same beady eyes. Making it onto this list, and at number 2 we have Sylvester Stallone. So everyone is familiar with the American actor Sylvester Stallone, and I mean, how can someone look like him? His features is just so unique. Well, Sylvester Stallone became famous for his role as Rocky Balboa. Well, according to this picture and the similarities, yeah, he was probably in his past life or time traveled. He looks to be this Italian Pope Gregory IX who was born around 1145. So this picture comes from a room number 1511 at the Vatican. They look so similar to each other that it actually is freaking me out. So you know what? Let's move on. So finally, making our way into number 1 spot on the top 10 people, mostly celebrities I guess, who have time traveled, we have yet another celebrity, Leonardo DiCaprio. This image of Leonardo DiCaprio exact double went absolutely viral. This is actually a picture of a student, Judy Zipper, from a 1960s yearbook, but she looks exactly like a young Leonardo DiCaprio. I'm not really sure if having your doppelganger as a female, if that's a good thing. If someone looks like me, it better be a male, I'm just saying. Okay, so you guys are looking at it. Their faces are identical and the hair isn't far off. So I guess we can all say that Leonardo DiCaprio is actually a woman from the 1960s who have time traveled, and we're living in modern times. So you know what? He got a sex change, so now Leonardo is a male. That all makes sense, right? Yeah, nah.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Antikythera mechanism. In the 1900s, a team of divers exploring a Greek island made a fascinating discovery. They came across an ancient shipwreck. The ship was filled with statues, jewelry, coins, pottery, etc. But the weirdest thing the ship contained was this blob of corroded bronze and wood. 2 years later, an archaeologist decided to examine this, and it was discovered that it was some sort of astronomical clock. But the items came from ancient Greece, and clocks hadn't been invented then. So it's pretty weird. That's suspicious, as Cardi B would say. So this item was in similar size to a mantle clock. The bits of wood fragments on it suggest that it was probably in a wooden case. They also believe the case would have had a large circular face with rotating hands. There was also a knob on the side, and the mechanism could rotate forwards or backwards. Needless to say, it was a fairly complex object for that time period, so some believe that it was left by time travelers. Moving on to number 9, we have the Viking Sword. And guys, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up because it really helps us out. Archaeologists unearthed the Viking sword Ulfbert that dates back from 800 to 1000 AD, and I hope I said the sword's name right, or else you guys are gonna just come at me in the comments. So this was quite shocking since they didn't have technology to make those kind of swords back then. It was only available 800 years later during the Industrial Revolution. So what's up with that? Jerry Seinfeld, what's up with that? Not only that, but its carbon content is 3 times higher than other swords of its time. It suggests that iron ore must have been heated to at least 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit to make this sword. And they didn't have that kind of technology to do that back then. So everyone is just freaking confused. It might have been dropped by a time traveler or something like that. In our 8th spot, we have the drill bit. So for this point, a weird drill bit was found in a piece of coal. Okay, so maybe a worker lost it while working in the mines or shoveling some coal. But no, the piece of coal that it was found in was said to have formed hundreds of millions of years ago. You know, back when they didn't have drill bits. How was it that this ended up in coal? Could it be part of a time machine that fell out during the traveler's journey? Who knows? But it's pretty weird and an unexplainable discovery. Not to mention the coal was around 22 inches thick and buried down 7 feet. It just makes no sense. Moving on to number 7, we have the brass bell. Here's another weird object found inside of coal. I feel like we could just do a whole list on top 10 weird objects found in coal. So basically, in 1944, a 10-year-old boy by the name of Newton Anderson was shoveling coal into his furnace at his house. That's when a piece of coal was dropped and it broke in half. Inside the coal, there was this mysterious bell. But the coal that he was using was said to be around 300 million years old. Back then, the dominant life form on Earth was insects. So obviously they weren't using bells. Also, the bell contains an unusual mixture of metals including copper, zinc, tin, arsenic, iodine, and selenium. Not a typical combination used to make objects. Now, a man named Boris Balazs ended up taking the bell to the geology department at the University of Delaware. They conducted studies and discovered that the bell was handmade. So again, how on earth is this possible? And what time traveler brings a bell with them on their journey? Seriously, out of all things, a bell. In our 6th spot, we have the Dino Figures. In 1944, thousands of little dino-looking figurines were dug up in Mexico. I mean, okay, that's cool, I'd buy a figurine of a dinosaur. The only problem is that people and dinosaurs didn't exist at the same time. There were around 32,000 carved pieces. The pieces date back to 2500 BCE, a time when there were no dinosaurs around, and people couldn't have possibly known about them. This is all according to scientists. What does this even mean? Like, were there some other creatures that roamed the earth back then that we don't know of? Or is there a time-traveling paleontologist out there? We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the COS Artifact. In 1961, 3 rock hunters were exploring the mountains of eastern California with hopes to find geodes to sell at their gift shop. They gathered a bunch of them and then took them back home, where they proceeded to cut them in half. However, one of the geodes practically broke their new crystal saw in half when they were trying to get it open. Instead of finding crystals inside, they actually discovered something more intriguing. Inside this rock mass was a perfectly circular porcelain-like section. In the center of the section was a tiny magnetic pin. An X-ray of the rock revealed that there was also a spring or helix at one end. From there, people realized that it resembles a modern-day spark plug. However, it's theorized that this rock is about 500,000 years old. But spark plugs were not invented until the 19th century. Again, is this a piece from a time machine or what? In our 4th spot, we have the ancient laptop. In a sculpture from 100 BC, it depicts what appears to be a young girl holding open a laptop for another woman. Of course, they didn't have laptops back then, so what is this? Not gonna lie, it does look like a laptop. And if it's not, then what is it? People then thought, okay, maybe it's a jewelry box, but the width of the structure is too narrow to be a jewelry box. Now, here's something to think about. Look back at the old Greek tales about the Oracle of Delphi. This was said to allow the priests to connect with the gods. In return, they give them advanced info. Many believe that this was given to them from the gods. Not only that, but the thing she's holding has 2 holes in it. Maybe one for a charging cable and the other for a USB key, perhaps? I don't know, that's just what people think. Moving on to number 3, we have the gold airplanes. A couple of years ago, researchers were studying the Incas when they discovered they left behind some interesting objects. One was a small golden figurine that closely resembles a modern jet plane. Upon analyzing them, people have noticed that the figures have what appears to be wings, a stabilizing tail, and landing gears. But of course, they didn't have planes back then, so isn't that interesting? Ancient astronaut theorists are convinced that the Incas somehow knew what planes were. This has led people to believe that maybe they were in contact with aliens. In our 2nd spot, we have the old hammer. Back in 1934, a hammer was found in Texas. The hammer was encased in stone. This stone was said to be more than 100 million years old. Which brings up the question, how the hell did they have hammers 100 million years ago? The hammer was complete with a wooden handle and everything, but it had turned to coal because of the age. This suggests that this hammer was made even before humans were around. I'm telling you, some time traveler went back 100 million years ago and then left their damn hammer. Or maybe their machine broke down and they tried to fix it, but were unsuccessful and got stuck there. And all that survived was their lone hammer. And at our number 1 spot, we have the Egyptian hieroglyphs. This one is pretty crazy, not gonna lie. So upon studying ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, scientists noticed some unusual glyphs present. These glyphs looked exactly like modern day planes and helicopters. Obviously, they didn't have planes and helicopters back then, so this is crazy! These glyphs were found in a temple in Egypt and are said to be roughly 3,000 years old. There's drawings of insects and birds, and then you can clearly see what looks like those 2 aircrafts. So there are a couple of theories here. Number 1, Egyptians are smarter and way more advanced than we thought. They didn't have planes, but maybe they were already drawing blueprints for them. Theory 2, they were visited by alien life forms, and what they were drawing are the alien spacecrafts that they saw. Or 3, they developed time travel and saw into the future. And then they're trying to tell others about what they saw in the future through these glyphs.